Scene safety is one of those things that we need to think about on every call. When you arrive on the scene, or even before you arrive on the scene, you need to be thinking about potential hazards because there are hazards on every scene. Now, the National Registry Skill Sheets has that as the top line for many of them, determine scene safety. And a lot of times when you're doing your simulations or your checkoffs, you say, is the scene safe? And the instructor says, yes, it is. And that's actually a lie. There's no such thing as a safe scene. It could be something as simple as you could trip over a curb, but there's always going to be some hazard. And what you have to do as an EMT is you have to look at the hazard, look at the scene, and see, is the risk manageable or is the risk worth it? So when I'm looking at going up steps into someone's house, that is a hazard. I may throw my back out carrying him down, but is there another way that I can do it? Can we go on a back door? Or if I have to take him down the stairs, do I have a piece of equipment like a stair chair that can minimize the risk? And then I decide, is this worth the risk? And most of the time it is. There are a few scenes that we're going to go to that are considered unsafe. And if they're not safe, then really we should not be there. So initially, if you get information from dispatch that says the scene is not safe, then we should stage. I always get asked how far away should we stage, and I generally say you need to be out of the line of sight. So if this is in a city, you may be 2 or 3 blocks away from it. If you're out in the county, you may be a mile or 2 from the scene. You don't want them to be able to see you. If it's a violent type situation and they see you, then there's always the possibility that they could shoot at you. And that has a pretty long range, so you want to make sure you're far enough away and out of the line of sight. The other thing that I've had happen is sometimes on unsafe scenes, we've staged, but somebody has found us. So we've been close enough that somebody realized we were there, and then they come to us. And that always is a little uncomfortable and a little dangerous because I don't know what they're bringing to us. And the police are not coming to us, they're going to the scene. So staging, make sure you're far enough away that they don't find you and you're out of the line of sight. Typically when we stage, we turn off our lights and sirens and we find a safe place to park. And we stay in touch with dispatch. When dispatch tells us that the scene is safe, that the hazard has been managed, then we can go, even though the scene is never truly safe. So when you arrive on a scene, you're looking for hazards, and that never ends. You spend the whole time just kind of looking around, being aware of what's happening around you, knowing how many people are there, always having in the back of your mind 1 or 2 escape routes, preferably 2 in case one gets blocked. You have a backup. Try to leave your routes open, so make sure the door is still open so you can escape from a building. You don't put the stretcher in the hallway and block your exit. Always be thinking about safety and hazards and how we could escape. So let's look at a few pictures of some of the things around town here, and we'll talk about some of the hazards.
So let's take a moment to talk about some scene assessment and scene safety issues. The National Registry Patient Assessment Skill Sheets always start with these steps, and the first 2 steps really have to do with our safety. One is taking the appropriate personal protective equipment precautions, and then determining the scene is or situation is safe. And again, it's never going to be completely safe, but is it something that we're willing to take the risk or that we can manage the hazard so that we can make it safe enough for us to be able to respond? Some of this starts with dispatch. So when dispatch gives us information, we're going to use that to be thinking of hazards. So if you are dispatched to a shooting, you should probably stage until the police arrive and the scene is considered or determined to be safe. Any sort of an assault, domestic, definitely we want to have the police there. If there is a suicide or an overdose, anybody that is suicidal is homicidal, so we want to consider those situations to be unsafe until we have the police there. If there's some sort of intoxicant or they've overdosed on something, a lot of times with alcohol or some other drug, then we need to have police there. Now, a couple that maybe we don't think about are like diabetics, because diabetics tend to be very confused and they're not sure what's happening, and they may become violent, so we want to have the police there. Behavioral emergencies is another one that could become potentially violent, mainly because the patient's confused, not that they're acting out specifically that they don't like you, but they're just very confused about what's happening and they respond by trying to defend themselves. So we have information from dispatch that says there's something that's a hazard, then we need to stage. And this is not just violence, there could also be things like hazardous materials or something's on fire, and then we need to call for the appropriate resource to try to minimize that risk. So always, always, always we have BSI. So we'll have our gloves and goggles, some sort of face protection. And nowadays, really the mask is also something that we should be wearing on just about every call. Most of the time we put this on before we leave the ambulance because we don't know what we're getting into. And it can be reasonable to assume that the patient is going to have some sort of body fluid or something in the air, and we have to mitigate the risk for that. So if we look at a couple of scenes, when you look at this one, there are all sorts of potential hazards here. We have broken glass, we have twisted metal, those are sharp. We would need a thicker uniform or turnout gear or thicker gloves when dealing with those so we don't get cut. There's the risk that gasoline or diesel or some other fuel could be leaking. And as we move into battery powered cars and hydrogen powered cars, we have other energy sources that may have to be managed before we can approach the scene. We have traffic, so we're going to be wearing our reflective vests. And there's also a possibility of airbag deployment. So if we get into these cars and the airbags haven't deployed yet, they could explode and cause some damage. So there's multiple hazards here. Looking at this next one, pretending to go into a water rescue, you want to make sure you are trained in water rescue, but also that you have personal flotation devices, rope rings that you can throw to a patient. And we don't want to get into the water unless we are trained and we have the proper equipment. Something like a construction site, and it's not uncommon to have an emergency at one of these. We have to worry about things falling on us, uneven ground, what are we walking on, are there exposed electrical wires? There's a long list of possibilities of hazards at construction sites, but again, most of the time we can make these safe enough for us to respond. When we're looking at a scene like this, you're thinking there's not a lot of hazards, but there's a set of stairs there. They look kind of steep. So getting somebody out this front door and down those stairs could be a problem. So is there a possibility of a back door? Or is this one of those times I'm going to have to call for additional resources to get more people to help me lift somebody down some stairs? And make sure you're using your equipment properly. This is really a good opportunity for a stair chair. If we have a scene like this, that's a hazardous material scene. And we are not, as EMTs, typically trained on that. That's a specified training and course that they have to go through to be a hazmat technician, to work in and around these, or a hazmat specialist. We typically get trained in that looks like hazmat, we should back up and make sure we're far enough away and set up a perimeter to make sure other people don't get up into that. So this is one that the hazmat team is going to have to handle. We don't have the equipment or the training to manage this. When you have something like a structure fire, then that's going to be handled by the fire department. We don't have the training as EMTs. Now, I know many of you might be firefighters that are also being trained as EMTs. But if you're purely an EMT working in an ambulance, your job is not to go running into that building or to grab a hose and try and put that out. So make sure you coordinate with the incident commander about where to stage, where they want you, and what your role is going to be. And typically what we're here for is if they find somebody in the house, we can take care of them, or if one of the firefighters gets hurt, then we can take care of them, and we're already there on scene. Because this is a pretty dangerous scene for the firefighters. When we're looking at crime scenes, as I talked earlier about the violent situations, make sure you coordinate with police and let them arrive first and look for hazards and determine the scene is safe. They have the firearms, the tasers, they have the vests, and most importantly, they have the training needed to manage crime scenes and violent scenes. That's what their job is. So once they say that the scene is safe enough for us, we can then arrive. And we want to coordinate and work with them. And if it is a crime scene, we always have to be careful about destruction of evidence. So we don't want to move anything. If we do move something, we need to document it. If we find anything that might be suspicious, we need to let the police know. So if you find money or pills or a weapon on a patient, let the police know, and they will manage that. We want to minimize the number of people that go in and out of scenes, because every time you walk into a scene, you leave some of your DNA evidence there, some of your skin cells and hair cells, and typically you get something on you, and you will carry that evidence away from the scene than when you leave. So more time was spent on this in a crime scene awareness chapter, but just try to minimize how much you disturb the scene. If we look at a scene like this, I see multiple hazards. I worry about body fluids. I worry about insects, bed bugs, roaches, whatever else. I see here on the lower right side, it looks like a space heater with stuff stacked on top of it, next to it. So there's a lot of hazards on a scene like this. And it's unfortunate that some people have to live like this. This is one that you might need to contact your Department of Human Resources or Health Resources to get them some additional assistance, but lots of hazards potentially with this one.
So I hope that helps you identify a few hazards or potential hazards that we have on scenes. Remember, this is something we look for at every scene. We're looking for hazards. And it's not a do it once and done. You do it continuously. You're always looking for potential hazards because there's always going to be something on the scene that's a little dangerous. Most of the time, it's not anything that we consider to be too great of a risk. We'll go ahead and go in and take care of our patients, and we'll go through the call without any problems. But just always have that in the back of your mind. If you have any questions on this, please leave them in the comments below, or you can ask me when you're in class.